William Scott Elam came into the world on November 13, 1920, in the modest railroad community of Ashland, Arizona. The town's stark and unforgiving terrain would prove prophetic, foreshadowing the rough-edged personas he'd eventually bring to life on screen. Heartbreak arrived early when his father passed away during Elam's childhood years, leaving his mother to shoulder the burden of raising him with limited support. These formative experiences with adversity shaped Elam's character, fostering a toughness and self-reliance that would become defining attributes throughout his existence, both personally and professionally. When Elam was just 3 years old, a childhood mishap caused severe trauma to his left eye. The injury permanently affected the eye's alignment, creating a distinctive physical characteristic that would paradoxically become his greatest professional advantage in the film industry. During an epoch when male stars were anticipated to embody polished attractiveness, Elam's distinctive features positioned him well beyond traditional standards. Instead of viewing this as an obstacle, he ultimately turned what society might consider a disadvantage into the cornerstone of his cinematic identity. Prior to pursuing acting, Elam lived a life completely disconnected from entertainment circles. He pursued studies in accounting and found employment as a financial record keeper, including a stint with Standard Oil Company. Throughout the Second World War, he enlisted in the U.S. Navy, accumulating discipline and worldly knowledge that would subsequently enhance the authentic roughness of his acting work. Performance arts weren't an initial goal for him. Instead, he stumbled upon this career path almost serendipitously, though it would ultimately reveal itself as his destined profession. Elam made his entrance into cinema during the closing years of the 1940s, beginning with minor unnamed parts that kept him on the periphery of productions. His distinctive facial features rapidly garnered notice from those responsible for casting, who sought performers capable of authentically embodying criminals, wanderers, lawbreakers, and ethically questionable individuals. During a period when Western and gangster pictures dominated, Elam secured consistent employment portraying individuals who existed beyond legal boundaries, or, at minimum, beyond social acceptability. His career gained momentum through productions like She Should Have Said No in 1949 and Rawhide in 1951, where his disturbing stare and volatile presence allowed him to distinguish himself even during limited appearances. Unlike numerous supporting performers who blended into obscurity, Elam possessed a capacity for capturing viewer focus. Moviegoers might forget the protagonist's identity, but they invariably recalled the individual with the misaligned eye who appeared perpetually on the verge of violence. The decades of the 1950s and 1960s represented the pinnacle of Elam's professional achievements, especially within Western productions. Westerns required genuineness, and Elam provided it abundantly. His portrayals avoided glamorized antagonism. Instead, his characters frequently appeared filthy, hopeless, spineless, or vicious, individuals molded by brutal environments and even more brutal existences. Elam featured in countless Western films and television programs, including Gunsmoke, Bonanza, The Rifleman, Have Gun Will Travel, and Rawhide. Each appearance strengthened his standing as one of Hollywood's most dependable villainous performers. Nevertheless, underneath the threatening exterior, Elam frequently injected his portrayals with an unusual depth of humanity, implying his characters were casualties of their situations as much as they were instigators of brutality. Among his most striking performances occurred in Sergio Leone's Once Upon a Time in the West from 1968, where he shared scenes with Charles Bronson and Henry Fonda. Despite his limited screen presence, his impact proved indelible, showcasing Elam's exceptional capability to create enduring impressions with minimal exposure. His contribution enhanced the film's ambiance of unease and ethical deterioration, defining elements of Leone's deconstructed Western aesthetic. Though Elam gained recognition primarily for antagonistic parts, his body of work extended beyond simplistic characterizations. As his years advanced, directors progressively acknowledged his aptitude for humorous material. Elam demonstrated flawless comedic rhythm and a readiness to satirize his established image, qualities that enabled him to shift effortlessly into lighter fare. Productions such as Support Your Local Sheriff from 1969 and Support Your Local Gunfighter from 1971 highlighted Elam's comedic sensibilities by amplifying the precise qualities that previously generated fear. He transformed into a wellspring of amusement instead of dread. This transformation illustrated his versatility as a performer and his comprehension of viewer anticipations. Elam's private existence, though receiving far less publicity than his memorable screen presence, was characterized by profound connections, bereavement, and perseverance, attributes that silently influenced the individual beyond the distinctively misaligned eyes. His two marriages, divided by sorrow and succeeded by restoration, provide an illuminating window into Elam's intimate world and the emotional depths that existed parallel to his extended Hollywood journey. Elam's initial marriage united him with Jean Louise Hodgett in 1937, considerably predating his emergence as a recognizable presence in American filmmaking. During this period, Elam was still establishing his adult identity, taking various employment opportunities and managing the uncertainties of young adulthood throughout an era influenced by the enduring consequences of the Great Depression. Their union commenced long before celebrity entered the equation, indicating a relationship founded not upon fame or professional drive, but upon fellowship and mutual determination. Jean accompanied Elam during his developmental years, when he remained distant from the weathered criminals and peculiar villains that would subsequently characterize his professional reputation. For approximately 24 years, Jean Louise Hodgett continued as Elam's spouse and life companion. This extended marriage encompassed the most crucial transformative period of his existence, from anonymous struggle to professional acknowledgement. As Elam progressively secured reliable work in Hollywood, particularly in Western and character-focused productions, Jean remained a consistent fixture beyond public view, delivering stability and emotional foundation within an industry notorious for broken partnerships and temporary romances. Their multi-decade union represented a silent demonstration of dedication and persistence. While Elam developed a screen image frequently tilting toward menace, unpredictability, or comedic peculiarity, his domestic existence throughout these years seems to have been considerably more traditional and stable. That sense of security reached a heartbreaking conclusion on January 24, 1961, when Jean Louise Hodgett succumbed to colon cancer. Her passing constituted a devastating emotional fracture in Elam's existence. Following more than 20 years together, losing his spouse meant not simply the departure of a partner, but the disappearance of a collective past extending to his earliest adult experiences. At this juncture in his life, Elam had already established himself as a character performer, yet professional achievement provided minimal protection from personal mourning. Jean's death concluded an extensive chapter of consistency and fellowship, forcing Elam to confront his future in solitude after nearly a quarter-century of matrimony. Notably, and perhaps revealingly, Elam didn't stay single for an extended period. 7 months afterward, in August 1961, he wed Margaret M. Jennison. The comparatively brief gap between Jean's passing and his subsequent marriage indicates not apathy toward his bereavement, but instead a fundamental requirement for connection and emotional partnership. For an individual who had experienced most of his adult existence as a married man, isolation may have seemed abnormal or intolerable. His choice to remarry so promptly reflects a yearning for continuity, companionship, and emotional stability following significant turmoil. Margaret M. Jennison became Elam's second spouse during a time when his career was thriving. The 1960s and 1970s would demonstrate some of the most fruitful years of his professional existence, with Elam featuring in a continuous stream of productions for both cinema and television, frequently dominating scenes through his characteristic presence and unconventional appeal. Margaret therefore joined his life during an era of prominence and acceleration, supporting him as he managed the requirements of recognition, aging, and a constantly evolving entertainment landscape. While less information is publicly available regarding their private relationship, the marriage persisted for the duration of Elam's life, indicating a connection that furnished enduring solace and stability across decades. Elam maintained considerable reserve regarding his relationship with James Garner, even as enthusiasts and chroniclers wondered about the connection between two of Hollywood's most identifiable personalities. Elam, celebrated for his unmistakable crooked eye, rough voice, and expertise in portraying sinister Western antagonists, never sought attention away from cameras. Yet, during his final years, he eventually elected to speak candidly about Garner, not with resentment or arrogance, but with remarkable affection, authenticity, and regard. Elam recognized that James Garner embodied a distinctly different category of leading performer than himself. Jimmy possessed that uncommon effortlessness about him, Elam once remarked. He could enter a space, display that subtle smile of his, and everyone immediately felt confidence in him. According to Elam, Garner's magnetism wasn't constructed by production companies or meticulously designed by marketing professionals. It was natural. What audiences witnessed on screen matched what existed in reality. Elam clarified there was no pretense with him. Though Elam frequently depicted weathered criminals and threatening adversaries, he valued Garner's capacity to radiate goodness without appearing vulnerable. That's more challenging than portraying a villain, Elam confessed. Anyone can grimace and intimidate, but Jimmy made compassion appear powerful, and that requires genuine self-assurance. Elam stressed that Garner never depended on arrogance or domination to establish himself during production. He didn't need to impose his authority. Individuals listened because they chose to, not because they feared him. Elam also confronted speculation regarding friction between supporting performers and principal actors throughout Hollywood's golden era and transition periods. While rivalry was inevitable, Elam dismissed the notion that envy characterized his perspective of Garner. "I understood my position and Jimmy understood his," Elam stated directly. "We weren't competing in the same contest. He anchored the narrative and I contributed to giving it edge." He found satisfaction in the concept that compelling villains enhanced heroes' memorability. "If the antagonist is incredible, the hero doesn't radiate," he clarified. What impressed Elam most profoundly, however, was Garner's understated honor, particularly regarding his treatment of others. He retained names, Elam remembered, crew personnel, background performers, individuals who typically go unnoticed. That reveals everything necessary about a person. Elam contrasted this conduct with the insecurity he observed in other celebrities. Some performers need to constantly remind you of their importance. Jimmy never did. As he contemplated Garner's body of work, Elam commended his adaptability, referencing his smooth transitions between television and cinema. "Most individuals become confined to one path," Elam noted. "Jimmy made it appear effortless, whether he was delivering humor or maintaining his position." Elam believed Garner's sustained success stemmed from audiences perceiving authenticity. People trust what seems genuine. Jimmy was genuine. In his concluding reflections, Elam dispelled any persistent myths of competition and provided a straightforward, sincere evaluation. "I held James Garner in high regard," he stated, "not because he was a celebrity, but because he was a professional and a good-hearted individual. Hollywood could benefit from more of that." Coming from an individual recognized for portraying some of cinema's most intimidating figures, the commendation carried exceptional significance. Elam's extended silence, previously construed as detachment or disinterest, eventually disclosed something more profound. Admiration conveyed not through publicity, but through the passage of time. And when he ultimately spoke, his statements portrayed James Garner not merely as a cherished icon, but as an individual who gained respect quietly, both during performances and beyond them. On October 20th, 2003, the extensive and remarkable life of Jack Elam reached a peaceful conclusion when he passed away from congestive heart failure at his residence in Ashland, Oregon, at 82 years of age. The date signified not only an individual's departure, but the end of a unique era in American cinema and television history, one defined by a countenance audiences could never forget, a career spanning more than 40 years, and a personality as keen and unexpected as many of the characters he embodied. Elam's passing was neither abrupt nor dramatic, but rather indicative of the progressive physical deterioration that frequently accompanies advanced years. Congestive heart failure, a medical condition wherein the heart loses its ability to circulate blood effectively, is prevalent among elderly individuals and typically represents the conclusion of years of bodily stress. For Elam, who had experienced a complete and rigorous life, both before cameras and away from them, the condition symbolized a final deceleration after decades of constant activity. During his latter years, he had substantially retreated from public visibility, selecting tranquility and seclusion over sustained exposure to Hollywood's glare. The location of his death, Ashland, Oregon, held importance, considerably removed from the commotion and perpetual transformation of Los Angeles. Ashland provided a more serene, contemplative setting, one celebrated for its environmental splendor and creative population. It proved an appropriate location for Elam's closing years, suggesting an individual who had reconciled with his history and no longer experienced the compulsion to pursue roles or acclaim. Having dedicated most of his existence to portraying criminals, gunfighters, and morally complex figures, Elam's actual life conclusion was tranquil, ordinary, and anchored, emphasizing the distinction between the man and the characters he so memorably portrayed. If you enjoyed learning about Jack Elam's remarkable life and his heartfelt reflections on James Garner, please show your support by hitting the like button and subscribing to our channel for more fascinating stories from Hollywood's golden age. Share this video with fellow classic film enthusiasts and let us know in the comments which Hollywood legends you'd like us to feature next. Your engagement helps us continue bringing these incredible stories to life. Thanks for watching.